Hello and welcome back from the break. The Real Meal Revolution with Dr. Tim Noakes. He's finally here to answer all your questions. Doctor, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Faizal.
Now, before the break, we spoke about Banting, how you've derived what you have in terms, and some of your thoughts around rather low carbs, high protein, and high fat. But the book itself is supposed to be the Bible of, or rather the so-called Bible for now on dieting. What's contained in the book? Because it's very thick, I must admit, and we're going to show you a copy of that soon.
Well, the book was the idea of John O'Proudfoot, who's a so-called adventure chef. And he discovered that he became a much better athlete if he ate a lot of fat in his diet. And he discovered he's insulin resistant like myself. And he came to me and said, we want to put together this recipe book. Would you write the introduction? And I started writing, and I realized I had to put some science together. So I put a couple of pages, quite a lot of pages at the back, which contains the science of why the high-fat diet is healthy and beneficial and why the low-carbohydrate diet is not proven to be beneficial. So that is the end of it. But the key to the book is the beautiful pictures of food. And
I can see that, yes.
And when you see that, people say, but you mean I can get thin eating that food? And that's the whole point. So we made food sexy and its preparation sexy, and the food is just so good. And then here's the key. The key is the green list, because this is the list that allows you to eat anything from this list. And if you stick to that list, you will be incredibly healthy.
I can see the list from here. I must admit I see butter and those kind of things. Yeah. And generally, I know watching Oprah all the years and Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil and all the talk shows, if I were to take out all the things from my diet that they said we should not eat, there would be nothing left to eat.
Exactly.
The only thing that they said we cannot, I think the only thing that's left to eat is cat food and dog food, according to them. I must be honest with you. Throughout the years, they've eliminated everything and anything. Right. And that list must be the Antichrist for them.
Yeah, you see, it's scaremongering science coming from Harvard, looking at these studies, and they look for what they want to look for. That's the problem. I mean, how can you possibly prove that someone who ate butter 30 years ago or for 30 years, that's caused them to have a heart attack? It's impossible. And then you've got to decide what is it in butter that's causing the problem.
So what was the defining moment when you decided, you knew all this info, you have been researching for many years, and you've been in the field for ages. What was that defining moment that says, I've got to put this together now and go out with this in the public space, knowing that going out in the public space might get you some flack coming your way?
The defining moment was in 6 weeks, I dropped my running time by 40 minutes on my longest run. And that was, for me, I said, that's unbelievable.
40 minutes?
40 minutes in 6 weeks. It was astonishing. So clearly what I'd been doing, the so-called healthy diet, had poisoned my body in some way, which I still don't know how it did it. And I suddenly went back to running the pace I was 20 years before. And that's how I judge my health, is how I'm running.
What's your thoughts about diets that prescribe 6 meals a day, the big portion, the small portion approach?
That's all garbage, because you only eat when you're hungry. That's the key. If you want to control your weight.
So your body's telling you when it needs something.
Do you go and tell, sorry, not you, but do we have dietitians out there telling Mr. Lion, okay, you ate a buffalo today, tomorrow you must have an impala? No, actually.
No, of course.
The lion eats its fill, then it goes to sleep for 3 days if it's eaten a buffalo, and it wakes up and says, I'm hungry, and it goes and hunts. And that's exactly how we're designed. We are creatures. We're not any different from that lion. And you must eat in response to what your body tells you. What's happened is the apostat, which is the controller in the brain which tells us when to eat, has been hijacked by the industrial diet. And particularly the carbohydrates and the sugar, and they make you hungry every 3 hours, which is addictive eating. So if you are eating every 3 hours, you have an addictive eating behavior, and it's impossible to lose weight that way. You have to stop eating addictively, and you've got to get it back to the brain controlling it when you're hungry. And that is eating every 8 to 12 hours. And when I say that, people get very angry, but that's the biology. And once we can get you to eat enough fat that your hunger goes away so that you can go for 8 or 24 hours without eating, you're back in healthy. That's the way it should be.
Is there any adverse reactions to eating fat or results from a long-term point of view?
No, that's never been shown. You see, they've spent more than $3 billion US. Let's get that right. $3 billion US on 3 major trials The Women's Health Initiative, the World Health Organization study, and the Mr. Fit trial. Over $3 billion. They got people to reduce their fat intake in their diets for periods of up to 10 years. Guess what happened? Nothing. There was no benefit whatsoever.
So there's no clogging up of the arteries, thrombosis, all those kind of things that
there's a paper out a week ago showing that in people with established heart disease, their diet has no effect on the outcome. And those eating high-fat diets do no worse. I think they do better. You see, the problem is cholesterol is not the cause of the problem. It's insulin and inflammation. And we don't understand what causes inflammation, but it's linked to carbohydrates in some way.
You also don't guarantee that people going onto your diet is going to lose weight. Why do
nor do I guarantee they're not going to have a heart attack. Because the heart attack is a complex disease. But diabetes is much simpler. And on this diet, if you start before you have diabetes, you're not going to get diabetes. And if you start when you have diabetes, there's a possibility that you might reverse in a few people. And we've got those cases. And I'm so proud to tell you that this very morning, this paper is published. And this is by a man who I debated 2 years ago and told him he needed to understand the literature better. And the title of the article is The Nutrition Revolution, the end of the high carbohydrate era for diabetes prevention and management. That's it. Now this comes from the Joslin Clinic, which is the most famous center for diabetes management in the entire world. So here is the head of the obesity clinical program at the Joslin Diabetes Center saying, guys, we got it all wrong. And he finishes up by saying, unfortunately, many physicians and dietitians across the nation are still recommending high carbohydrate intakes for patients with diabetes, a recommendation that may harm their patients more than benefit them.
So he's kind of sliding to your side of the scale.
Absolutely.
And so
it's not even sliding, it's going to be a tsunami. And one of the things that's driving the tsunami is the conference that we're having in Cape Town on the low carbohydrate conference. We've got 15 of the world authorities in Cape Town from February the 19th to the 22nd. And there's a tsunami of information coming to Cape Town. And the doctors are going to go there and say, they're going to go there with sort of skepticism. By the end, they're going to say, why wasn't I taught this at medical school? And once we get that message out, then we're going to change.
The fact that your book is called The Real Meal Revolution, you're quite a revolutionary yourself, coming up with this and deciding to take this in the public space. How have you received that personally? Do you feel that, what have I done? I've just started an argument, or have you become an advocate for all of this now?
I think you have to look back at my career. And my career, I wrote a book about it called Challenging Beliefs. And you'll see that I've been challenging ideas which I don't think are right for a long time. If I was in the chair in 1980, the question you would be asking me is, Dr. Noakes, you've said that rugby neck injuries shouldn't be happening, and Dr. Craven is telling us that you're talking nonsense. And he's told the public that Noakes doesn't know what he's talking about. Today, 35 years later, rugby in South Africa has the best controls and the best management of injuries. That wouldn't have happened if I, in 1980, hadn't taken the nation forward and said, you've got to ask questions about neck injuries. And I took on a company called PepsiCo, which you'll know is quite a large company. And I proved they were completely wrong in the way they were marketing one of their products, a sports drink. And that their advice was leading to serious ill health, a new condition never described before. And eventually, I proved I was right. And I will be right on this one. And this article, it just shows, it shows that. And on Sky News today, there it is. We should never have gone the low-fat route.
I'm happy about one thing, that I've met the man that 200 years from now, his face will be up there in some old painting that says, here's the man that changed the world and the health of the world.
Yeah.
Something interesting was mentioned on Hello Doctor, I think. And that was that there was this introduction of carbohydrates, and the world health situation dropped dramatically. And I think I've read that on your website too. In conclusion, that's what you've been talking about all the time. Just a final piece of advice to people that's wanting to get into your diet and to start with your diet.
Okay, well, let's make again the point that it's for insulin-resistant diabetes, obesity. I think it's also probably for people with cancer and dementia, prevention of dementia. So
And
that's
prevention thereof.
Yeah, and prevention thereof.
But that's all of us then.
It is essentially all of
Yeah.
us, yeah. And I think that we have to start with our children, and we mustn't introduce them to sugary foods from a young age. We need to give people real foods. That's the message. The message is don't eat processed foods, eat real foods, learn to cook, so to cook your own foods, and if you've got carbohydrate intolerance or insulin resistance, restrict your carbohydrate intake. And the sicker you are, the less carbohydrate you may eat. So in my case, it's 25 grams a day, which is essentially nothing. And the health benefits are enormous. So we can reverse this obesity diabetes epidemic by just understanding there is this condition of insulin resistance. It's very widespread. And if you have insulin resistance, you may not eat carbohydrates. Full stop.
Professor, thank you for coming on the show. I do know one thing is going to happen, and that is that I'm going to be flooded with questions, and you're going to have to come back very soon, back on the show.
It'll be my great privilege to come back again. Thank you.
Professor Tim Noakes, all the advice that you needed to know about weight loss and where you need to go with your health, especially diabetics. Look out for his book. The details on screen. Until next time, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.